You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network. This is the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of Thunderquack Podcast Network, where anything can happen. So strap yourselves in and hold on to your butts. It's Thunderquack time!
Hello and welcome back to the Thunderquack Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Michael Cohen.
And I'm your other host, Amanda Conkin.
And this is our episode ranking Attack of the Clones. But before we do that,
it's the summer of Star Wars.
It's our summer of Star Wars. We're gonna get into the news. But
which is gonna start to get less and less because it's weekly now.
Yeah.
Weekly.
Yeah. Well, it is. There's less on the news on the topic of the news this week than there was previously. And one of the other things that we want to remind people is to write in. You can email us at thunderquacknetwork@gmail.com. You can also message us on Facebook and Instagram. Sorry, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Facebook.com/thunderquack, at thunderquacknet on Twitter, and at thunderquack podcast on Instagram. And let us know. Let us know your Star Wars ranking so far. That is of interest to us.
The two that we're doing.
Of the two that we've done so far.
Yeah, more interesting in 4 weeks.
Yeah. And you know, like just write us in about the stuff that we've talked about on the previous episode, that sort of thing. Yeah. Because we want to keep the conversation going the same as we did on Quiver, the same as we do on Rebel Cells.
Or if you have some news that came up over the week that you want to specifically talk about, that's really awesome too.
Yeah, absolutely. But since we don't have any of those emails yet, I'll say we're going to start with some very exciting news. And that was the Vanity Fair Star Wars article for the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah. So why are they wearing the same outfits exactly? Does that mean that they just have the same outfits, or does it mean that no time has passed?
It means that you're not very observant, and all three of them are in completely new clothes.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are.
They look exactly the same.
Nope. Finn's not wearing the jacket. He's got a vest. His pants are blue with a red stripe. So completely new. That's completely new for Finn.
Okay, well, I wasn't really paying attention to Finn. I was more talking
about... You can argue with me about this if you want to, but you're wrong.
Okay, that's fine. I'm glad, as long as...
Kylo is wearing a very similar outfit, but it's not the same. His cape has a hood. Yeah, his cape has a hood now, which is... He's never had a hood on the cape before. He had... In The Force Awakens, he had a hood, but it didn't have a cape. It was like part of like a scarf sort of thing.
Is he gonna get caught in a thing?
No. Worst superhero movie of all time. Rey's outfit is completely new. Is it? It's completely new.
It looks so similar.
Of course it does. She's had 4 costumes, including this one, and 3 of those 4 costumes are very similar, but each one of them is
that's
unique.
Good. Then that makes me happy. I just thought that they just all look like they could like.
Hers has a hood on it as well.
I didn't see the side view with the hood.
So the under tunic on Rey's outfit is closer to the tunic, and the pants are more similar to her. I guess the boots as well. To her outfit at the end of The Force Awakens, beginning of The Last Jedi, the one with the vest. So that's basically the same. Yeah. But then she's got the wrap over that's very similar, but a different color from either of the other ones that she wore before. Because the one that she wore...
Is this one of the photos too?
Yeah. So the one that she wore... This is why I linked the article in the rundown. But that's all right.
Was I supposed to read the rundown?
Yeah.
I didn't read the rundown. I'm sorry.
It's okay. Hey, don't apologize to me. Apologize to the listeners.
No, they're just covering it along with me as I look.
No, they're not. They've seen these pictures already.
I did see it. I saw some of the pictures. I got distracted.
Yeah, there's a hood on her tunic. She's
He
got
has a cape in all of these photos from previously. Unless this is
What?
this is. Is this one of the new ones? This is
No.
one of the new ones.
Kylo Ren has a cape, but he has a hood now on the cape.
Oh,
There's a hood attached to the cape.
that's so minute. How did you notice that?
Because I looked at it.
Oh.
How did you notice that? With my eyes mostly. I don't know. I licked my computer screen. I could tell. I looked at it in detail.
Do we know who this is? This purple person?
Yeah. So that's Kerry Russell's character.
Kerry Russell.
Good God.
I'm a terrible Star Wars fan.
You're the worst.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Let me open up the article myself. I want to say that her name is Zori. It's something like that. Oh, I don't have Chrome. That's why that's not going to work.
Chrome?
Not on my phone because it's an Apple phone, so I just use Safari.
That makes sense.
Yeah. What is her name? Wait, that's annoying. Of course, these pictures are taken by Annie Leibovitz, which, for people
fabulous.
who don't know, she's a very famous
Probably the only photographer
Probably,
I know by name.
probably the most famous photographer.
Yeah.
In modern time.
Mm-hmm.
Zori Bliss, that's her name. Played by Kerry Russell. We don't know anything about this character other than the way that she looks.
Interesting.
Yeah. And
like from these photos, like that's when we found out about
this
her?
photo, and when those costume pictures leaked.
Oh, okay. Right.
She was on there, but the name wasn't there, so we
Right.
didn't know her name yet. And she was is she on that leaked poster? She might be on the leaked poster. But yeah, we didn't really know anything about this character. And we certainly didn't know that it was Kerry Russell's character. So it'll be very interesting if she ever takes that mask off. Anxious fans immediately started saying she must be, oh yeah, she is on that leaked poster. She must be Rey's mother.
That's
doubt
the least interesting choice.
I highly doubt it.
No, why can't we just agree that we're never going to find out Rey's parents and that what Kylo told her is correct, that they don't care about her and are unimportant
well,
to the
I mean, let's agree that what the story dictated is that who her parents are not, that's not important.
Yeah, I'd like that.
That's what's important about Rey, is that
it doesn't matter.
her parents weren't special.
Yeah.
She is special.
Yeah.
On her own merit. And I think this is one of those things in Star Wars that it drives me nuts. I know that the Skywalkers are important, that's the focal point of the Skywalker saga. But the whole point of the Skywalker saga coming to an end is that Rey is not a Skywalker. She's not connected to that family at all. And the lineage of it doesn't matter. And she doesn't have to be magically created by midichlorians, conceived by midichlorians.
Do you believe that they won't do that? I hope they don't.
Yeah, no.
All the things you're saying.
It won't have anything to do with any of that.
Good.
It has to do with the fact that Luke was supposed to restore the Jedi Order, didn't, and then the Force went, okay, we'll fix this.
Right.
And created Rey.
Right.
Okay. Not a virgin birth creation story, but just like the Force was awakened through her. She is the one who is bringing the Force back to the galaxy, the light side, right? And Kylo Ren is the one who's bringing the dark side back to the galaxy. And it's balanced. It's still in balance, but it's complicated to talk about, but and I don't want to go off into a whole Star Wars thing yet. We'll get into Attack of the Clones, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't need to be special families all the time.
Yeah,
and it drives me nuts that everybody gets upset when it's not about the special family, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the story, the novels, the expanded universe, comic books, video games, everything really, really wanted to focus on that idea.
Well, Annie Leibovitz always does the photos. She did the ones.
Yeah, she's done them for I believe every movie since Empire, because nobody cared about A New Hope, right? Nobody cared about Star Wars when it was in production. But then Empire was the sequel to the biggest movie of all time, right? So I'm fairly certain, because in the article it says that she's been taking pictures of Star Wars for 40 years.
Wow,
and
that's cool. Yeah,
that would mean since Empire.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I can remember her photos of the prequels in Vanity Fair. I have had. I probably don't have.
I do. Anymore. I think I kept
that
it. I think I
Vanity
kept
Fair
the one from the. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I. I'm pretty sure I had that somewhere.
So, she's been taking pictures of Star Wars forever.
Okay, well, good. Anyway, sorry that I just saw the photos and I was like, wait, what does this mean? What does it mean?
But yeah, so like the idea that the Skywalkers are special, I mean, like, I think that a lot of fans are tied to that because the expanded universe and the 3 movies that we had for a long time, and then the 3 movies that came along after that were all about the Skywalkers. Yeah. And now the whole point of the sequel trilogy is that things die, they end, and the next generation will carry on the flame, right? Like, they'll carry on the same ideology as the Skywalker saga, but it doesn't need to be the Skywalker saga. It doesn't. It's not important that it's one family.
I guess the thing about watching these prequels that has been the most interesting is to go back and realize just how unimportant it was that Anakin was just some kid that just was created. Like, it's just like this idea that, like, where did he come from? Who are the Skywalkers? Why do they matter? It really goes back to this, like, you know, this slave lady. She just sort of had this kid and then died. And it's like, he just became who he is because that's how the like Force shaped him and the people around him and the Jedi. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting if, like, the Rise of Skywalker is just talking about, like, ending that specific blip in, like, in something that wasn't supposed to happen, right? Like, Anakin wasn't supposed to be trained. Like, there were things that weren't supposed to happen, and somehow it, like, destroyed the whole galaxy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like, there's so many ways that they can take this movie. And
I love Star Wars. I'm excited to watch it. I just want to watch it now. Somebody is watching it right now.
Somebody on the planet is watching a Star Wars movie right now, or Rise of Skywalker? Because they're working on it. Yeah. I mean, probably not, because they're working in California. It's 9:00 at night. Somebody is working on something.
You woefully underestimate the film industry.
No, somebody right now is definitely working on Star Wars. Yeah. But I don't think that anybody's watching the movie. I think there's probably some guy at ILM who's sitting at his desk waiting for a render to finish. Yeah, well, or something like that. Great. Like, you know, like, because they're behind schedule or something like that. But J.J. Abrams is probably at home right now.
Have they wrapped?
Oh yeah, they wrapped.
That's what I mean. Like, all of the things are, like, with people right now. Somebody could be watching it. I'm so excited.
Somebody could be watching it right now. Maybe they're finishing watching it right now because they
just got kicked off at a studio over in Singapore, which just started their day a couple hours ago.
Maybe. And
they just got hot. It's a Tuesday over there. Anyways. Sorry. I'm excited that if you could know all the things in the universe. Ooh, sorry, this isn't the after show, but I will just say that somebody just said something about, like, Google being able to make chips that so you don't have to learn anything ever again. You could just have, like, a search browser in your head. It's scary. I'm upsetting.
Is it scary or is it great?
Really cool, because then you could just learn everything and know everything.
So I saw a meme yesterday that was a ridiculous 90s teacher meme or something like that. Yeah. And it's like a teacher and he's, like, making a funny face and, like, a ridiculous face with his eyes pointing in 2 different directions and making like the duck lips. Right. And it's like the caption on it is, well, you're not always going to have a calculator in your pocket. And it's like, we do all have calculators in our pockets all the time. Yeah. And that the thought that, like, yes, it's important to understand the fundamentals of math, but it's also not that important if you're not going to go into that field.
Yep.
So there's a certain point where you shouldn't have to learn anymore. If you can do your taxes, I think that for the majority of people, that's the amount of math that they need.
I will say too, I have to like work on budgets and spreadsheets like as part of my job, and I rely on formulas. Like 100%. Like you just have to know that the formulas work and trust in it. Like,
but that's the level you need to get to do your taxes, right?
But yeah, that's what I mean. But like, I don't know the actual math. I just know that you do this times this, and you get the thing you need, right? Like that's what I mean. Even like doing math, I really let the spreadsheets run it for me in the majority of cases.
Yeah, so, and that's the thing is that like the computers, they do that stuff. Yeah. History. It's important to learn the lessons of history, but it is not important. It's never been important to remember the dates and names of history. It's important to understand, I don't know, let's pick anything. Suffrage. It's important to understand why that happened, what led to it, and what the result and the consequences of it are. Yeah. Right? Like, that's what's important. Yeah. Names and dates, not as important. Especially now. Names and dates, I can Google it. I can look it up on Wikipedia.
The only people from World War II that I remember are Hitler.
Yeah.
And Archduke Ferdinand. Wait, that's World War I.
That's World War I. Yeah. What about Churchill?
And Churchill, yeah.
Okay.
I confused my wars.
Your world wars. I mean, like, Archduke Ferdinand is important in World War II in the sense that if World War I doesn't happen, World War II doesn't happen. Doesn't either. But
you should still learn history, everybody, because it's important.
you should learn history, but memorization
is not a thing.
Knowing things by rote is not important. Free thinking and creativity.
Yeah, like essays, like writing about the stuff, extrapolating knowledge, like what it's about reading it and understanding what happened. But that's the same with like every high level thinking. Like when you read something, it's not about like what is the names of these main characters. It's like important. You need to know the names of the main characters so you know what they do or why they're important.
This ties into what I was saying in the pre-show, which if you want to hear, you got to pay $5 on Patreon. You want to hear the whole thing, but that ties into the idea of like it's not Thor shooting thunder at or lightning at Thanos isn't the important part of his story in Endgame. There's more important stuff that he does. Yeah. So it's the same idea, and that critical thinking of like watching a movie, reading a book, reading a comic, playing a video game. Interacting with another human being, maybe, and using your critical thinking in order to evaluate what you're seeing that's a skill that a lot of people don't have, and they don't have it because it's not taught in schools. Critical thinking is a university thing, so when you get into post-secondary, you can get into critical thinking. But not everybody goes to post-secondary.
They may be changing the curriculums. I mean,
well, that's the whole
school like 15 years ago.
That's the whole point of Common Core and the change to Common Core, is that Common Core is a focus on critical thinking and not memorization and knowledge by rote. So, knowledge by rote being like, I remember a name and a date, but I couldn't tell you for the life of me why that's important. Yeah. Right.
Which I do like. I remember that sometimes that it's like the person was like, if you can't remember the name, describe it and we'll give you marks, right? Like the idea of like, it's not necessarily important that you know the exact name of the person, but understanding like what it is and why we're asking and stuff. So,
well, yeah, I mean, like if you're studying Shakespeare, knowing everybody's name, knowing who Fortinbras isn't as important when you're studying Shakespeare as understanding the concept of a foil. It's much more important to understand what a foil is and why Fortinbras is in Hamlet. Because otherwise you're like, and then suddenly we're talking about this guy over here that doesn't have anything to do with the actual story. Why are we stopping in the middle of this play to talk about some guy who's conquering over there? It's like the point is that it's a character to compare Hamlet to. That's what he's supposed to be.
This is related to Star Wars because have you seen the trailer for Ophelia?
No.
It's a new Daisy Ridley movie called Ophelia.
Oh,
it's
I have. I have.
Because I was watching. Yeah, it's interesting that of all of the movies, all of the Shakespeare plays that they could have done from a woman's perspective, Ophelia would not have been
Your first choice?
My first, because also I just really dislike Ophelia. So I'm like really excited to see like what. Well, actually, I just generally speaking dislike Hamlet as well because it's, you know, like the white male, like story of like where do I fit in this world and my privilege, and I just there's something like universal about that I just love to hate because it's kind of like, oh, shut up, Hamlet, you whiny little biatch. Like, honestly,
okay,
Hamlet's the worst.
Oh yeah, yes he is, but that's kind of the point, right?
Yeah,
he's supposed to be the worst.
Yeah,
you're not. I don't. If you're reading Hamlet or you're seeing
and
a performance of Hamlet and you relate to Hamlet, then you need to pull your head out of your ass in which it is firmly placed. At the moment.
Yeah,
because Hamlet is not a likable character.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of Horatio.
Yeah.
Is that Horatio's like, dude, I'm your best friend and even I can't stand you anymore.
Yeah.
Right? Like he's like, knock it off.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes.
Anyways, but I'm interested.
Most of the main characters in Shakespeare, that when I say main character, like the protagonist and almost all of the big Shakespeare stories is not a relatable or likable character. I mean, like Macbeth is not, you're not supposed to like Macbeth.
Yeah,
he's doing bad things. He's making the wrong choices. All four of the characters in Midsummer Night's Dream. Well, no, even in comedies.
I guess I don't know. I quite like Rosalind. As You Like It is a good play.
Okay, but I said in the main Shakespeare. That's not
the
main
ones that
Shakespeare.
Are famous. The famous Shakespeare.
Sure.
I don't know.
So you're being a Shakespeare nerd and not understanding that the majority of people
know Rosalind.
Don't.
If you've ever had to do a Shakespeare monologue, you know that she's the only good monologues because everybody else is whiny and terrible.
And the majority of people don't have to do Shakespeare monologues, Amanda. Your experience is not the universal experience.
What?
Yeah.
But my dad died and my uncle married my mother.
That's not true at all.
My own experience.
Anyway. So...
that was me being Hamlet, if anybody didn't get it, because you don't understand Hamlet.
Let's save the Shakespeare talk for when we get into Attack of the Clones.
I was going to say, it's on topic, though.
It's somewhat on topic. Whenever we talk about Star Wars.
It's like Coriolanus. That's what Attack of the Clone is. Because it's like a Shakespeare play, but also one that you don't care about because it's like political and boring. But you know the main character, and you know that something bad happens to them.
If the main character of that play then goes on to be the bad guy in Romeo and Juliet, and you're like, wait, what? He has a whole story before this?
I would say that the Henrys do that because anyways, sorry, I'll stop talking about Shakespeare.
We'll get into it in Attack of the Clones. It's appropriate for that. Let's get through the news. Aladdin came out on Friday. I saw it because I'm a good geek. You didn't see it because you are
because my mom's in town this week and I totally thought my mom was going to come with me to see it, and then turns out we're just going to drink wine at my house instead, which I'm okay with.
You live like 10 minutes away from the movie theater that you can drink wine in.
I know. I don't know. And
go drink wine in the movie theater.
I know.
Anyways.
Whatever.
Okay, well, it's great.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it. I have time this week. Oh, no, I don't have time this week. I'm not going to be able to see it until...
I loved it. Andy...
Maybe we'll go Thursday.
Andy and I... Yeah, please, recount your schedule for everybody on the podcast.
Sorry.
And, especially the people who aren't listening to this until Friday. Andy and I just finished recording it's not a spoiler cast. Thunderquack reviewed episode about it that'll be up on YouTube later this week, or maybe is already up on YouTube, depending on when you're listening to this. Get it early on Tuesday for $1 on Patreon. No, not the Aladdin. This podcast.
Right. Yes,
you get it early. So if you're listening on Friday and you're like, this is old news, well, that's because you didn't pay for it. So you get old news. I'm sorry. You get the leftovers. It's great. The music, this is the unpopular opinion, and I don't care who gets mad at me for it. I think the songs are better in the new version than they are in the original. I really, really like the new arrangements, but
this is good. I'm glad this you're giving me this because I do want to see it. I just didn't know how badly I wanted to see it. So.
Yeah. I mean, I got emotional in the first 5 minutes of the movie.
Okay, I will say it's live action, but how much of it is animated? Because the carpet is animated and
Abu is animated, but it's a lot of practical sets.
Okay.
It's mostly people.
Okay.
It's not Lion King, which
That's fair.
was all animated,
Yeah.
right? No, yeah, it's
Were
like
you more excited for Aladdin or Lion King?
I don't know. It's difficult. Lion King's one of those ones where it's like it's great, but I kind of feel like it's a little bit of its time. Whereas
And
Aladdin
very Hamlet.
and very Hamlet. Aladdin is a little bit more timeless for me.
Okay.
Interesting. I don't know. I think I like Aladdin better, but it's really tough. I certainly like the characters in Aladdin more than I like the characters in Hamlet. Or in Hamlet and Lion King. As an adult. As a kid, I think I probably would have said Lion King.
Okay.
But as an adult, when I go back and I watch Lion King, I think because I do understand that it's Hamlet, and I think because I look at it with that lens, and then I look at it critically and go like, well, it doesn't. Yeah, it's Hamlet, except it doesn't really fit the themes or the story of Hamlet at all.
Well,
right? Like when people say that it's Hamlet, it's like it takes inspiration from Hamlet.
It's not. I don't think it was like meant to be.
No,
yeah.
Well, no, it. I mean, it is meant to be lions doing Hamlet, but it's like they change so much that it becomes its own thing, which is good. Like that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as somebody who is a big fan of Hamlet, because Hamlet would be my favorite Shakespeare play.
Of course, it would be.
That's the
Shakespeare equivalent of being a basic white girl.
But okay, yeah, if I was like, oh, Hamlet, because Hamlet's so deep. But I don't like Hamlet because of how deep it is. I like Hamlet because it has some of the best comedy. But it's subversive comedy. I mean, like I like it when Shakespeare is funny in spite of the drama.
Yeah,
like it's a tragedy.
Yeah.
And yet Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are two of the funniest characters that he ever wrote.
Yeah,
Yorick is a funny character, even though he's like a sad clown in a graveyard.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's black humor, right?
I will
and
say I
black
understand
humor.
objectively that Hamlet is like the best one.
And I like Horatio as a character, and like from my perspective, Horatio is really the protagonist of that story because he's the only person who survives.
He gets to say the flights of angels, right?
Yeah,
it's the best line in all of Shakespeare. Well, maybe not, but
I mean, like, it's that tends to be my thing with Shakespeare is that I like to go for the characters that are on the side. Like, I like Mercutio more than I like Romeo.
Everybody likes Mercutio better than Romeo because Romeo's a whiny little biatch. Why is everybody so whiny and terrible?
I don't know. Why do you keep saying biatch like it's 1995?
Because I don't want to say bitch on the podcast.
Then don't say either.
Okay. Sorry.
Well, it's not better to say biatch. That's not.
Are you sure?
Well, you're still swearing.
Oh.
It's still a curse word. I think that if you said biatch in an elementary school, you'd still get in trouble.
Really?
Yes, 110%.
Okay.
And you also sound like a dumb person. Okay. So you're not winning on any front. Like it's a lose-lose situation.
Is it things that I shouldn't be saying? I actually, now that we're on this topic, I'm going to take it all the way. Because my impulse was to say bish. But then I realized that that's like a slang terminology that's been like appropriated from like...
That's urban culture.
Yeah, urban culture. And so I'm
not urban
I'm not urban at all.
You're as far away from that as it gets. You're from Penticton.
Should not say that. But then I'm like, can I say biatch? And then aside from...
Should you say bitch to begin with? Because is that not a sexist term?
Oh, it is. Okay, fine.
So...
You win. But...
Brat.
Yeah, brat.
They're whiny little brats. They're obnoxious. Don't
yeah, that's true.
This is the challenge is like don't just say the same thing over and over. Come up with something new. Turn a phrase.
Yeah. Whiny brats.
Well, I mean, whiny brats wouldn't be you turning a phrase, but like come up with something. Be creative.
Yeah.
Improvise. Anyways, go see Aladdin. Listen to Thunderquack reviewed on YouTube, and if you're at the $5 level on Patreon. The last thing we'll talk about before we get into the big topic, Harrison Ford recently was asked whether or not somebody else should take the reins of Indiana Jones when he's done with the character, and he said quite simply, no. So if I can speak for Harrison, we're on a first name basis, of course.
Oh, okay.
I'll expound on that a little bit. It's okay for things to end.
Right?
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine for a thing to be done.
Yeah.
Harrison Ford is Indiana Jones. It's also fine for Alden Ehrenreich to come in and play Han Solo. Yeah. That's also fine.
Yeah.
But like, maybe we don't need more Indiana Jones. I think if the what is it? The Chronicles of Young Indiana Jones or whatever it's called, Young Indiana Jones Chronicles.
What is that?
A series of mini-series about young Indiana Jones, in which Indy is played by, I think, like 4 different actors at different ages of his life.
Interesting.
If that told us anything, it's that we don't. It's not.
It's not that great of a character either, though. Like, Indy. I don't say.
Excuse
your
you.
Face. Your
Excuse
face
you.
Was immediate.
It's not that great of a character.
I've never seen you have that much disdain in like a millisecond. Than you did.
Well, Indiana Jones is number 2 on the AFI. I don't know what their current ranking is. The last time that back in the day AFI used to do, AFI is the American Film Institute. They used to do these TV specials where they would rank like all of the cinema's best heroes and cinema's best villains. Darth Vader is the number 1 villain. Han Solo, I think, was like number 5 hero.
Wow.
And Indiana Jones is number 2. Atticus Finch is number 1.
Atticus Finch.
Yeah, To Kill a Mockingbird, right?
And
I'm almost positive Indiana Jones is number 2 because I was like Harrison Ford is in the top 5 twice.
Oh.
And the reason why, and that's the American Film Institute. And I don't care if they've changed the rankings since then.
At one point
in the late 90s, they were like, Indiana Jones is the second greatest hero in film history up until this point. Beaten only by Atticus Finch, one of the most celebrated heroic characters in literature, American literature at least. So. Yeah, I think that the rest of the world would argue with you that Indiana Jones isn't that great of a character.
It's fine.
But
he just, I guess it's because I didn't grow up being all like, Indiana Jones.
Have you seen all of the movies?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
It's a real problem. You just, what are you doing?
I think I have.
You think you have?
I saw the one definitely with the snake pit and the one with the ball switch, like the ball and the switch.
That's the same movie.
Okay,
yeah.
So I definitely saw that one.
Okay, so that's
I saw the Crystal Skull.
Okay.
Because I don't know why.
Yeah.
That was also the one with Kate Blanchett. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I probably saw the second one. I don't.
And you probably saw the second one.
What happens in the second one?
It starts in, I want to say Shanghai.
Oh, I saw the one with Sean Connery.
That's Last Crusade. That's the third one.
Okay. I'm pretty sure I saw the one with Sean Connery.
Oh boy. Well, you're going to have to watch all of them because at some point we're going to do Indiana Jones ranked. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow.
Sorry.
You're a terrible co-host to have on this show.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, because all I can talk to you about is Star Wars, barely, Shakespeare, apparently, and other things that I make you watch, like Arrow.
But I can. It's fine. If you want me to fake it, I can talk about Indiana Jones.
I don't want you to fake it. That's the problem. I'm gonna replace you with Curtis or Aaron.
You can.
Okay.
Let's talk about Attack of the Clones. How come we haven't talked about Attack?
Because
I'm here for a very specific reason. To talk about Hayden Christensen in Little Italy.
Okay.
Which is Romeo and Juliet, by the way. It's all related.
Well, the prequels are Shakespeare.
Well, yeah.
So the original trilogy...
Are we done with the news?
Yes, let's get into Attack of the Clones. So the original trilogy is Buck Rogers and Flash Gordon with a mix of Kurosawa samurai films and spaghetti westerns. Okay, like that's the mixture that goes in to create the original trilogy. Indiana Jones, also created by George Lucas, is adventure pulp Did you ever see League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
Yes, I did.
So Sean Connery plays Alan Quatermain.
Yeah.
That's a character from literature that Indiana Jones is modeled after.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I can see that.
Because he was in novels and stuff like that. So he's modeled after that. There was supposed to be a second trilogy of Indiana Jones movies, starting with the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. That didn't go as planned. The second trilogy of Indy films was supposed to be modeled after B serials of the 1950s, because you go from the 1930s and 40s, where the pop culture of the time is the adventure pulp, right? And then you fast forward 20 years into the 1950s and 60s, and you're into B movies. That's why the fire ants are a big thing, like the ants that try and bite them, and the Crystal Skull. You said you've seen this one.
Yes. I don't
the aliens are important. The flying saucer.
I understand. I remember the aliens, and I think,
and the Russians are the bad guys.
Do you want to know why I probably... Yeah, no, Crystal Skull. I remember it.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
So the reason why all of those things are the enemies in that is because those are common enemies from the 1950s B movies, right? So in the same way that this is the thing that George Lucas does. It's the thing that I think the sequel trilogy is kind of missing. And when we get into the sequel trilogy, I'll talk about that more, because it does have an overarching thematic thing that ties into today, but it's not supposed to be today. Right. So, because it's Star Wars, so it's always supposed to be George Lucas. He's always looking in the past. Yeah. The prequels are meant to be Renaissance era in general, specifically Shakespeare, and specifically the political Shakespeare stuff. So and like the Henrys, the Richard III. Yeah. It's supposed to be stuff like that. Yeah. So a couple
her outfit totally.
A couple of the actors got the memo. Yeah. Ian McDiarmid totally understood what was going on. Palpatine. Oh yeah. And that's why Palpatine is awesome throughout the prequels. That's why people are psyched about him coming back in Rise of Skywalker. He's also awesome, of course, in Return of the Jedi, but we spent way more time with him in the prequels than we did in Return of the Jedi. Ewan McGregor got the memo as well. I would say Tamura Morrison, who plays Jango Fett in Attack of the Clones, figured it out.
Yeah.
And Christopher Lee, who plays Count Dooku, understands what's going on. Yeah. Samuel L. Jackson was completely out to lunch on this fact. Nobody told Hayden Christensen, and Natalie Portman didn't care. Yeah, so, and that's where you can see like the rift between the great performances in these movies and the mediocre ones.
You're right.
And the outright awful
Lee
ones.
Was really good.
Oh, Count Dooku is awesome. Yeah. Like there's no even right up until he gets his head chopped off in Revenge of the Sith. It's spoilers for the next movie. He gives a great performance. Yeah. He's fantastic. And he's such a good villain. And my thing with the prequels is the problem is that 1, 2, and 3 each have different villains. Although they all have the same main villain being Palpatine, Darth Sidious. The adversary in each movie is a different adversary. Yeah. And that it means that over the course of the trilogy, we don't care.
Yeah. Because right? it's just like villain of the week.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is not my genre anyway.
So I think that story would work much better if Dooku was the villain from the beginning.
Oh, yeah.
Or more importantly, if Darth Maul was Dooku, if they were the same character.
Oh, yeah, that'd be cool.
And I think like you would accomplish a lot of the same things with that character. I mean, they do. They essentially do what I wish they had done in the Clone Wars. Darth Maul comes back. He survived getting cut in half. He's half man, half machine. He's devious. He comes up with a whole plot to take over the galaxy because he's mad that he was supposed to be... I mean, like, the end result with the Clone Wars is that we get a better story with Darth Maul anyways, so it's fine. But he's jealous that Palpatine had all these plans, right? He was like, Palpatine, everything was laid out. What he didn't expect to happen, his overconfidence, which is always his biggest weakness. He thought that Darth Maul could kill Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan.
Right.
So he underestimated Obi-Wan because he did kill Qui-Gon.
Yeah.
so he had all these plans for the two of them. They were
Right.
like Darth Maul says, "Oh, at last we'll have our revenge. We'll reveal ourselves to the Jedi." Blah blah, all that stuff. And he's like, he's jazzed. He's like, "Yeah, we're gonna do this."
In Clone Wars.
In the Phantom Menace, he says. He's got like 2 or 3 lines.
Yeah.
And one of them is, "At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi.
Right,
At last
right.
we'll have our revenge."
Right.
And you can tell, like, he's ready to start Palpatine's plan. It's like they've been talking about this for a long time.
Right.
And then he dies, or at least that's what we're meant to believe. And then Dooku comes along, takes over, and does everything that Darth Maul was supposed to do. In the Clone Wars, we learn that Darth Maul was totally capable of doing everything that Dooku was doing. Now, Dooku probably would have still been part of the plan. He just wouldn't have been a Sith.
Right.
He would have stayed, like, Palpatine would have used him as
more of a political
still as the Count. Because it's less important that he's a Sith. It's more important that he's the Count of Serena.
Yeah.
Because he's rallying the separatist systems to the cause, right? And they want to rally behind a rich dude because they're Republicans. That's the allegory.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would have been better if it would have just been Darth Maul all the way throughout. But unfortunately, George Lucas opted for a movie monster in the first movie, not a character.
Yeah.
And then came back from that in Attack of the Clones, but then for some reason decided in Revenge of the Sith to get rid of a great character right off the bat, like 10 minutes and 15, maybe 20 minutes into the movie, and replace him with a Transylvanian robot. General Grievous, right?
Yeah. Oh, I forgot General Grievous is coming up.
Grievous is a terrible character. Darth Maul in the Phantom Menace, before the Clone Wars and before he came back and became one of the greatest characters in Star Wars, and then even throughout Star Wars Rebels, man, Darth Maul has such a great story.
Really?
Yes. I mean, like, his entire arc up until the end in Star Wars Rebels is phenomenal.
Okay.
And the way that he intersects with all of these different characters.
And Rebels takes place after Solo? Or
yes.
Yeah, okay.
After Solo. Yeah.
Okay.
Because Rebels is basically in like the 3 or 4 years leading right up to Rogue One.
Oh, okay.
So like his story in the animated stuff is awesome, and Sam Witwer plays Darth Maul.
Yeah.
And Sam Witwer actually voices Darth Maul in Solo as well.
Yeah, I remember.
It's such a shame, but it's also this thing where it's like, well, we wouldn't have gotten that story if the prequels weren't what they were.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I have this perspective on the prequels that, like, I like them, I like the story, but I don't actually like the movies. Right. Going back through them right now, it's like, I don't like these movies very much. I don't like Attack of the Clones very much. I definitely don't like The Phantom Menace very much.
Right.
They're very boring movies.
Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith less so. I think next week we'll have a little bit more positive to say. Yeah. But I love the prequel era because of the Clone Wars. And it's amazing that the animated stuff was able to pull that era sort of out of that mire and even elevate it at times, I think, to the level of the original trilogy. Oh. There are some stories, Obi-Wan Kenobi's arc over the course of the Clone Wars, that leads him into Revenge of the Sith, that helps you understand where he and Anakin are at, and more importantly for me, helps me understand how distracted he was, right, and how much grief he was dealing with in that time period, that he completely ignored all of the warning signs with Anakin. Right.
Because it just like means more because you understand where he was coming
from. Because Darth Maul is part of this storyline, but we learned that when Obi-Wan was young, he had a relationship with a Duchess, the Duchess of Mandalore. She becomes the Duchess of Mandalore. At the time, she's
like a Mandalorian, like Boba Fett?
Yes, but no. So Mandalore is split into multiple factions, and modern Mandalore has turned its back on the warrior stuff. That's why Jango Fett is a bounty hunter. That's why, like, he's able to be hired and all of this stuff. That's why there are no Mandalorian warriors when we get into the classic trilogy. Like, their tradition is kind of wiped out. And the tradition that we see in the Clone Wars is that Mandalore is much more art focused. They're and actually like their art at that time is cubism. Like they're very, there's a lot of like abstract and cubist stuff in their design and
Cool.
their world. And this is all George Lucas stuff. Like this is all what he wanted, the stories that he wanted to tell. But Dave Filoni directs everything. But George Lucas is the one who like would say to Dave, like, these are the stories we're gonna tell.
In the Clone Wars?
In the Clone Wars, yeah. So they're all George level canon. So for people who are like, oh, the Clone Wars is cartoons, well, it's all George Lucas storytelling.
Right, yeah.
So they're just as valid as the movies, if that's how you measure that stuff. But Obi-Wan has this relationship with Satine, and obviously it can't go anywhere because she's a politician and he's a Jedi. Interesting.
Yeah, right.
Interesting parallel, guys.
Yeah.
And so they part ways until the Clone Wars brings them back together when Obi-Wan and Anakin are assigned to protect Satine because of an assassination attempt.
Oh, jeez.
So it's like there's this great parallel, and the story flips where now Obi-Wan is distracted by this woman that he's in love with. It's unrequited love. It's going back to Shakespeare, going back to Hamlet. Obi-Wan is Anakin's foil in this story. It's the story of, yes.
It's the same.
Ewan McGregor is the love interest of Satine in Moulin Rouge. Yes.
And sorry, I just had to Google it. I was like,
yeah.
Are you sure that you're not messing it up?
Nope, that's her name, Satine.
That's awesome. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I believe that's intentional.
Yeah.
She doesn't have red hair though; she's blonde.
No,
but yeah, so the story between Satine and Obi-Wan is like Fortinbras is to Hamlet.
Right.
What if Hamlet didn't do everything wrong?
Right. Yeah.
What if Hamlet was the man that he's supposed to be? What if he lived up to his potential? Right. He'd be Fortinbras, and he'd be out there conquering Denmark, right?
Yeah.
And Obi-Wan and Satine are this example of like the exact same story. They met when they were young. They fell in love, but their duty and their ideologies were more important than their personal feelings. They went their separate ways. And this culminates in tragedy. Not to give away this story in the Clone Wars, but
wait, Obi-Wan doesn't end up with this girl?
Darth Maul ends up killing Satine, and that like
spoiler.
But it's all part of Darth Maul's revenge for what Obi-Wan did to Darth Maul.
Yeah.
Right? Because
that's like a great story.
It's so good, and it's so Shakespearean of like Obi-Wan cut Darth Maul in half because Darth Maul killed his master.
Yeah.
Right? Out of anger, channeling the dark side, which he shouldn't have done. So that moment of weakness, of using the dark side to defeat Darth Maul, creates the monster that eventually kills the woman that he loves.
Right, yeah.
How Shakespearean is that? The prequels are awesome.
Yeah.
Just not the movies.
Yeah.
But if you can remove the films from the story, and you can step outside of that and replay the stories in your head, which distance and time from the movies, from viewing the movies, allows you to do that.
Yeah.
And especially watching through the Clone Wars and becoming familiar with those versions of the characters, much better portrayals of those characters. It's very easy to then see not Hayden Christensen as Anakin, but Matt Lanter as Anakin Skywalker, and James Arnold Taylor as Obi-Wan Kenobi, and to see those characters going through the steps that happen in
and
Attack
then you just like
of the Clones.
put it, you would like project it onto.
So in the same way that Superman to me is not Christopher Reeves or Tom Welling, he's both.
Right.
Not to mention the Max Fleischer cartoons and the comic books and Tim Daly in the animated stuff. Like, Superman isn't a character, Superman is an idea. And I have my own idea of what a true Superman story is. I also have my own idea of what the true story of Anakin Skywalker is. And one of the things that we talked about when we were watching it, we actually watched this one together because the Attack of the Clones was the first activity that Amanda and I did as friends.
Yes.
We sat and watched it in your basement. when we were
Yeah.
teenagers.
It was the first time I had watched it. I don't think I had watched it before.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know. I don't remember.
I think that was like the thing where you were like, how have you not watched Attack of the Clones?
Yeah. I probably said that because how had you not watched Attack of the Clones? So when we were watching it, I said, how much better would this story be if instead of Anakin being whiny about, oh, I'm not the Jedi I'm supposed to be.
Right, yeah.
I want to be all powerful. I'm going to be the most powerful Jedi ever. If instead he looked at the Jedi Council and Obi-Wan saying, like, you're just having, these are just nightmares. They're not visions. They're just nightmares. You can't go to Tatooine. You can't go rescue your mother. You need to forget about your family. You're a Jedi now. Yeah. If he looked at that and went, the order is broken. I could have saved my mother. Obi-Wan was gaslighting me, essentially, like telling me, like, it's okay. They're dreams. Dreams will pass. And it's like, no, they weren't dreams. They were visions. He's the chosen one.
Right, yeah. Like
Take him more seriously.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that is the mistake of the Jedi Council. They look at Anakin Skywalker and especially Mace Windu and Yoda look at Anakin and go, especially Mace, he's not what this prophecy says he is.
Oh, right? Yeah.
Like Mace is skeptical of that from the beginning, right? And Yoda is like, this could go either way. Yoda's point is more so, we don't know what that prophecy means.
Oh, right? Yeah,
it's an ancient prophecy. The chosen one will bring balance to the Force. There's a great comic in it's totally not canon. It's in a Star Wars Tales, which were like these anthology comics that they were doing around the time of the prequels. And there's a great little sort of like 5 or 6 page story of Yoda and Mace in a diner on Coruscant. And it evokes the diner scene from Pulp Fiction because Samuel L. Jackson.
Nice. Yeah.
And they're sitting and they're discussing this prophecy. And what does it mean that Anakin will bring balance to the Force? And Mace is like, well, if he is the chosen one, if he is going to bring balance to the Force, isn't that a good thing? And Yoda takes the salt shaker and the pepper shaker and he pours out the salt. And it's 10,000 grains of salt. And he goes, this is 10,000 grains of salt. And then he takes the pepper shaker and he pulls, with the Force, he pulls 2 grains of pepper out of it. And he goes, this is the Sith. These are the Jedi. And then he blows the salt away until there's only 2 grains of salt remaining and 2 grains of pepper. Right. Two kernels of pepper or whatever. And he goes, this is balance too.
Right, yeah.
This defeating the Sith isn't balance.
Right.
It's peace, but it's not balance.
Right, yeah.
This is balance. Yeah. And it just kind of ends on that, and it's like, did Anakin balance the Force? Because I mean, like, now all the stories, there were a million other Jedi out there. It's so obnoxious. But
really?
Yeah, there's like every time they want to tell a story now, they go, well, but except for this one Jedi who escaped the Purge.
Oh, really?
And so it makes every single one that escaped the Purge less special.
Yeah.
Right? There's a new video game coming out this fall that's another Jedi that escaped the Purge. Oh. And it's like, as far as I'm concerned,
it's just Yoda.
Yoda, Obi-Wan, Kanan Jarrus, and I mean Luke and Leia, although they're not Jedi yet. But Kanan Jarrus is one of the main characters in Star Wars Rebels. And Ahsoka Tano, but she's not a Jedi at that point. She turns her back on the Order and whatever.
Does Ahsoka survive?
Yes. Yeah, another foil for Anakin when she sees that the Jedi Council is corrupted by the dark side, and because they've been working for the Sith Lord, whether they knew it or not, she goes, this is broken. The Jedi Order is broken. I've
always wondered what happened to Ahsoka, and I haven't asked because I wanted to figure it out on my own.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Well, watch it. Watch the Clone Wars. It's on net. Well, actually, no. You lost your chance. It's not on Netflix.
It's going to be on the new Disney thing, though. Yeah.
It'll probably be on Disney Plus, but it might not be because it was produced by Warner Brothers. So
no.
Yep.
Don't you have all the DVDs?
Yeah, I absolutely have all the Blu-rays, but I lent you season 1 and season 2, and you kept them for like a year and never watched them.
I lost my right.
So. We have not talked a lot about the Clone Wars, or Attack of the Clones specifically. We talked around it a lot.
Well, I mean...
But
What is there to talk
The
about?
thing about Attack of the Clones is that it's a very, very... Everybody goes after the Phantom Menace for being boring. But the Phantom Menace starts boring. Like we said last week, it should open on Naboo with the invasion.
Yeah.
Right? Going through the planet core is cool. That sequence is fun.
There's much more cooler action in that one, definitely.
And then they rescue Padme, and that's kind of fun. They escape from Naboo. That's a cool sequence where we see all the R2 units get blown off the ship. Yeah. Like there's actual along the way, it's peppered with these fun moments, right? We get to Tatooine, we get the pod race, which is too long, but it is fun. Like there's cool stuff in there. It's too long, like the break is too long in between, but then we get the awesome fight between Qui-Gon and Darth Maul on Tatooine. That's pretty cool. Right? Yeah. I like that fight better than the Duel of Fates one at the end.
Right,
yeah. And then we're in for a long stretch of boring stuff. But then we go back to Naboo and we have the big battle at the end of the movie. It's 3 battles going on at once, which is classic Star Wars, right?
Yeah.
So the Phantom Menace has all of those elements. Attack of the Clones starts with the first assassination attempt, and then the second one pretty soon after. And then nothing happens until Obi-Wan is on Kamino and confronts Jango Fett, which there's like an hour in there where nothing happens.
Nothing, yeah. And there's no multiple battles.
No, at the same time. No, there's one battle.
There's one battle. It just is the...
Yeah, so...
Wow.
And then after that sequence, it's forever until we get to the droid factory. And then from the droid factory until the end of the movie,
That's fun. It is pretty fun. But, nothing really happens in this movie.
Anakin and Padme don't do anything interesting from the time that Zam Wesell is defeated until the droid factory. Which is roughly an hour and a half.
The thing that bothers me too is where he's like, I need to go to Tatooine. And then the next scene they're just like on Tatooine. Mm-hmm. I don't know. There's just things that just like...
I guess he slaughters some Tuskens in the midst of that.
Yeah, but that wasn't like...
it's not exciting. We didn't actually get to see it.
Yeah.
So it's a boring movie, but the last half an hour is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
The droid factory is kind of but the arena battle is awesome.
The arena battle is something that I remember quite fondly from the prequels. Yeah. Like that's something I do remember, and I remember enjoying it.
Inspired directly by John Carter.
I was gonna say when I watched John Carter, that was the part I liked about John Carter was that it reminded me of Attack of the Clones.
And it is so interesting because John Carter is very much inspired by the prequels, the movie John Carter, which is inspired by
John Carter.
The Edgar Rice Burroughs Princess of Mars stuff, right? We should just watch John Carter in the midst of this Star Wars ranking and just rank it with Star Wars.
Yes.
It ranks higher than any of these prequels, but it is itself a Star Wars prequel movie. If you look at that movie, it's 100% a Star Wars prequel movie.
Yeah. I am so devastated that they just botched that whole series. Like, that would have been so fun.
Yeah,
Is it going to come around again? Do you think somebody else is going to get the rights to it? Not as a movie necessarily, but maybe like the next HBO thing or something?
It would be the best next HBO thing. Now that Game of Thrones is done.
If they did a John Carter series on HBO.
If you did a Princess of Mars as an HBO Game of Thrones full frontal nudity
full
type of thing. Like if you actually adapted the source material and you didn't tone it down, it had all of the violence, all of the sex, all of the political stuff. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
That would be incredible.
Yeah. It's
never going to happen.
Well.
But Game of Thrones was probably never going to happen at some point too. And who knows what will happen in the future. But, oh man. Now I'm just upset that we live in a world where that's not happening.
But, I mean, I feel like Game of Thrones is, HBO needs their next thing. Like, they need to know, they have a very specific niche that they're able to,
HBO, I'm not doing anything right now, and I would be more than happy to executive produce that.
I don't know who has the rights to it.
You can go back and listen to the full catalog of Quiver to see how good I would be at running a show. Certainly better than anybody running a show on the CW. Yeah. Oh man, that would be so good. I don't want to talk about Star Wars now. I just want to talk about John Carter. And then the end battle with the clones and the battle droids is great. And everything's awesome up until Yoda shows up with a lightsaber, which at the time when I was a kid, I thought was the coolest. And when I say kid, I was like 16 or 17 at the time. And I thought it was so rad. I thought Yoda flipping around doing his frog jumps and spinnies with a lightsaber was super cool. Now I look at it and I go, as I look at a cup that has Yoda with his lightsaber out, every time I see Yoda with a lightsaber, I groan. Yeah. It just, I mean, like, there's some good stuff in the Clone Wars with him, but all of the great stuff in the Clone Wars with him has nothing to do with a lightsaber.
It would have been okay if Yoda had never used a lightsaber.
Yoda with a lightsaber is a prime example of why the prequels are broken and why George Lucas should not have directed those movies. In fact, he shouldn't have written the stories either. He should have given his treatments to somebody else to write those movies. I mean, if anything, The Force Awakens proves that he should have brought Lawrence Kasdan back to write those movies for him. But same with Solo. I mean, like, the three of my favorite Star Wars movies are actually did Lawrence Kasdan write Return of the Jedi as well?
I don't know.
I think he did. So yeah, like, my favorite Star Wars movies are all Lawrence Kasdan Star Wars movies. That's where the great dialogue and interesting themes comes from. It doesn't come from George. George created a world and was visionary in the sense of realizing that science fiction world on screen. Mm-hmm. But then everything that comes after that is all of the great people that he surrounded himself with, which was his greatest skill. Yeah. Was finding these people. And I mean, like, the prequels absolutely have those elements. And we talked about this when we were watching the movie. The prequels are full of a lot of really talented people doing their best to make something awesome. Yeah. Right? But it just doesn't happen. So I don't know. It's so much like season 8 of Game of Thrones, where it's like at a certain point, it's like the Ouroboros, right? The symbol for infinity, the snake eating its tail. It's like you start at the head of the snake, which is the most powerful part of the snake, and then eventually you get to the tail until you get back to the head of the snake, which is eating the tail. Yeah. And that's what happens when these stories go on too long. You start with A New Hope and Empire and Jedi, and it's like, wow, this is incredible. And then you have 20 years between those movies for Star Wars to go from being a series of films to a cornerstone of pop culture and really modern mythology. I mean, like, when you think about modern mythology, there are a couple of let's point out 3 that are really easy to point out: Star Wars, Marvel, and DC. Like, these are 3 cornerstones of modern mythology. And
Lord of the Rings.
And Lord of the Rings. And there you go.
And the Chronicles of Narnia, I would argue as well. To a lesser extent.
Chronicles of Narnia didn't shape anything. Chronicles of Narnia is great storytelling, but it didn't. I don't think that people made decisions about their storytelling in the future based on as heavily on Chronicles of Narnia. I'm sure that there were people that were inspired by it, but Chronicles of Narnia itself was heavily influenced by J.R.R. Tolkien, because the two of them talk back and forth, right? But obviously Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I would say Lord of the Rings is definitely the 4th pillar of that, because Game of Thrones doesn't happen without Lord of the Rings, right? So when you look at stuff, you look at like these 4 things. Those are 4 pillars of modern mythological storytelling.
I would say that DC and Marvel are in the same category in a way that, like, there's like Star Wars, DC, Marvel, and like Lord of the Rings. Because you get your like superhero, your fantasy, and your sci-fi.
I don't think that that's true though, because DC is very much Greek storytelling. It's Greek mythology. Marvel is modern myth. Marvel is the most modern myth. There are definitely some some of those elements that get borrowed
Right.
within it, but they get borrowed in the same way that like monomyth is in everything, right? But the reason why I would set Marvel apart is because Marvel, in its inception, is mythological storytelling fueled by the advance of technology. Right? It's like the X-Men are the children of the atom. The Fantastic Four go into outer space and they're created by cosmic radiation, right? The Hulk is gamma, right? Like it's
that makes sense.
It's very much like all of those characters. Iron Man is engineering and technology in human form, like literally in human form. Like it's very much modern mythology in terms of like contemporary sci-fi. And the fact that Marvel stories are always of the time period that they're told in, right? Whereas DC stories work the best when they're timeless, when they're outside of time. Like the animated stuff, the Bruce Timm animated stuff is like, is it the 1930s or is it today? Because they have technology that we have now, but the buildings are all Art Deco. What is this, right? And then the characters themselves are Greek myths, so some of them literally. The problem with the prequels is that although there are the influences in Shakespeare and sort of Renaissance storytelling and all of that sort of stuff, most notably in the fact that they break from the 3-act structure that the original trilogy uses, and all 3 of the movies use a 5-act structure, which like that's the Shakespeare thing, is that they are all in 5 acts. It's not as clear when you watch Star Wars, A New Hope. It's super clear that is a beat for beat remake of The Hidden Fortress by Akira Kurosawa with elements of these other films. I mean, like, if not everybody knows those films, but if you did, and in 1977 more people were familiar with those movies. Certainly people who are going to go to a movie like Star Wars. It's like if you did something now that was beat for beat Iron Man. Right? Like I'm sure if we looked at the time period, it's like it's been 10 years since 11 years now since Iron Man. There's probably around 11 years between Kurosawa's early stuff and Star Wars. Is that right? Maybe. It's within that sort of time period. It's so much less clear to the modern movie-going audience that the prequels are inspired by Shakespeare, that they're meant to be,
because people just write them off.
And it's the like, there are so many things in it for Shakespeare nerds that point to it. When Palpatine in the next movie talks about the tragedy of Darth Plagueis, it's like he literally says, have you ever heard the story of the tragedy of Darth Plagueis? Oh, right. It's like, that's a Shakespeare thing, right? Like that's a direct reference. It's so obvious once you unlock that sort of that codex to it, but it wasn't obvious to the audience at the time. I don't think it's obvious to a lot of people now. And that's where those movies really fail the most. So I don't know. Attack of the Clones, is it better than The Phantom Menace? You
had an interesting like twist there where you were like, The Phantom Menace actually is less boring than Attack of the Clones.
It's less boring, but which movie is better?
I mean, that's a high metric for me, is the like boring factor in the movie. I don't know. I really like Hayden Christensen, and I really like the scene, the like Coliseum. The
Coliseum stuff.
Yeah.
And I love the Obi-Wan stuff.
Yeah.
Like his film noir story in the middle of the movie.
It's pretty cool. Is good. The way that he works.
Ewan McGregor is great.
Yeah.
Tamara Morrison as Jango Fett is great.
Yeah.
I love all of that stuff. If you could just lift out the Anakin Padme stuff, I think that's a good movie. Yeah. And I think that with The Phantom Menace, there's no one part of that movie that you could remove
And it be,
and make that a tighter film.
Yeah.
That story is what it is,
Yeah.
and there's no getting away from the
Yeah.
like. It's all so linear and and like interwoven that it's like, okay, it is what it is.
Yeah.
To me, it's like it's so much further away from being great than Attack of the Clones is.
But they should have done something like Attack of the Clones, because the stuff with Anakin and Padme is just that, like, they didn't know how to tell a love story that was in any way interesting. Because them sitting around in fields and talking is not, like, what is interesting. Like, that is just...
Well, and we talked about the idea that when their dads are seeing them off at the beginning of the movie, when they get on the refugee ship and they fly away, and Anakin goes, I just hope he doesn't, or Obi-Wan goes, I hope he doesn't do something stupid, and or I think he says reckless, but, and what's his name?
The other dude, I've never known his name.
Is he Captain Typho? Yeah, I think he's Captain Typho. Turns to him and says, I'd be more worried about her than him.
And you don't see that.
That is it, and that's exactly it. And that's the problem with the prequels as a whole, is that there's so much work done to tell and not show. Yeah. And it doesn't come across at all that in the story, in George's head, what he saw was these two obviously fall in love because they're way more alike than anybody's giving them credit for. Like, nobody's paying attention to how similar they are. Yeah. But, like, think about Padme in The Phantom Menace, and it's like, your planet is occupied. If you go back there, they will execute you. Like, you escaped, so they didn't kill you because you got away. Yeah. But when you tried to get away, they tried to kill you. They shot at your starship, and if they had hit it, you would have died. Yeah. They were trying to kill you. They want to kill you. And she goes, yeah, but they're my people. I'm going back to fight for them anyways. Yeah. That's a very Anakin thing to do. But it's not clear. At no point does George Lucas do a good job of showing us that the two of them think very similarly. Yeah. All he does is talk about it a couple of times and show us how different they are. Yeah. I'm a senator. You're a Jedi. Yeah. And they talk about it a lot too. But, it'll never work. Well, except that the two of us are peas in a pod. Like, let's go. Yeah. And then at the very end of the movie, you do get the moment of her saying, "Oh, this is aggressive negotiations," right?
Right.
Like, when she calls back
like,
to her, he's like, "What do you call this? Aggressive negotiations." Yeah. Right.
But there could have been so many things besides them sitting around and talking that they could have shown, like, even just in the activities that they were doing, that they're similar in what they like.
Here's an idea. They're on a ship, right? Traveling as refugees. A refugee ship has probably got some
nefarious folks, or like refugees that need help, or
you have some downtrodden people, and you have some people willing to take advantage of those downtrodden people. Something that Anakin, knowing we're undercover, we need to keep a low profile, I can't do anything about this, but I want to so badly. Yeah. Right? Just seething with his Anakin Skywalker smoldering hatred of these people who are hurting these other people. Treating them like slaves, let's say, and wanting to do something about it, and going to turn to Padme and say, I really wish I could do something. She's not there, and he looks over and she's knocked some guy out.
Yeah, or something, right?
Where and it's like, oh, and then he smiles of like, this is why I'm falling in love with her. Right. Not because she's pretty and I saw her when I was 10 years old and I thought she was pretty back then and I think she's pretty now. Yeah. Right? Really feel like I could fix these movies, but again, like I said when we were watching, this is 20-year-old 2020 hindsight. Yeah. Right? I've had a lot of time to think about how to make these stories better, but
it's, I think
that's actually a scene that you could just add in, though. If you were doing like a novel or something, you could just add that back in.
You could do a lot. I wonder if, you could just do a lot. Those actors still exist. Yeah. They still look relatively the same.
Well, Natalie Portman looks identical.
Yeah. So does Hayden Christensen. You could just reshoot.
You think he looks identical. I think he looks pretty...
I think that you should just go back and reshoot the Natalie Portman and Hayden Christensen seasons in this second movie. It would be, like, phenomenal. So that's why it does win over Phantom Menace.
Yeah, I mean, like, it would be great if they, instead of the stupid scene where she's talking about... Is that in the deleted scenes? she talk about the boy that she liked? That's
Oh, yes, she did.
She did,
Yeah.
instead of having them sit in a field and talk about that, how about we're undercover? No one's supposed to know we're back on Naboo. You run into her old boyfriend.
Oh, yeah.
At which point, Anakin is like, on the one hand, he's like, I don't like this guy because it's your ex-boyfriend, and I'm in love with you, and I'm possessive because I was raised as a slave and I don't know how to socialize. First he was raised as a slave, and then he was raised in the Jedi Temple. No one ever taught this kid how to talk to human beings.
Yeah, that's fair.
So he's mad on that, but then he's like, this guy's gonna blow our cover.
Yeah.
And so he wants to do something about it, and maybe he does, and then Padme gets mad at him.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
there's just like
much better
things
scene
that you can do.
A much better scene. Oh my god.
Anyways.
Why
do we love this franchise? It just hurts us.
Because it is great.
Yeah. The thing that has made me instantly love the prequels is this idea of what you put on something as an audience member. And this is what you're talking about with the Clone Wars. And I believe, and this is why I had kept the Clone Wars for a year and a half, because you had told me that does all this, and I fully believe that. The thing that has made the prequels better for me is when somebody said that this sequels, these like from Force Awakens onwards, is a reverse telling of the prequels. And I really like that idea, and I hope that it comes to fruition.
It's not going to.
I really want it to, though. But just even that idea, that like the idea of that kind of storytelling made me like the prequels more. So
I'll say right now, I'll be very shocked if Kylo Ren is redeemed. If he is redeemed, it'll be a sacrificial act.
Yeah, he'll die.
Yeah.
Of course.
But if that happens, then something will happen with the Knights of Ren, and one of them or two of them will become the new Sith. I'm much more interested to see how they turn Kylo all the way and push him down the Darth path. And he becomes a Sith Lord by the end of this. He rebuilds the Sith Order.
Interesting.
Because that's where you gotta leave this story.
Really?
Is with the Sith and the Jedi at odds again, both building power at the same time.
Okay.
But if you want to keep telling stories, if this galaxy keeps going,
this is like the end of this
of the Skywalker saga. Yeah, and that's why, I don't know, that's kind of why it has to, Kylo has to die. But if you're saying that it's the end of the Skywalker saga, but they also said that Revenge of the Sith was the end of the Skywalker saga. This is a marketing thing. It's not reality. It's what they want us to believe.
Do people not believe that the rise of Skywalker is Kylo Ren rising? Nobody believes that because he's technically a Skywalker.
I don't think that anybody wants to see that. I think very few people want to see that.
Okay.
I think more people want him as a bad guy. Here's the thing. He's very irredeemable. After the things that he said to Rey in that last movie, I have no interest in forgiving this guy.
Yeah, that's fair.
And even Leia, Luke is like, I can't save him. Right. And Leia goes like, I know.
Yeah.
I'm aware.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah.
This isn't Anakin Skywalker. This is a different situation.
Yeah.
Look at Anakin's story. Anakin's story, as we're watching it right now, is I love people. I don't want to let them go.
Right.
I'm afraid to lose the people that I care about. I lost my mother. Now I'm afraid I'm going to lose Padme.
Right.
Palpatine comes along, preys on that weakness, on that fear, turns that fear into anger into hatred into suffering, right?
Yeah.
It's a slope that he slips down.
Yeah.
Kylo Ren, Ben Solo, everything a person could ever want.
Yeah.
His parents are famous. They're war heroes. His mother is a senator in the New Republic. They're rich.
Yeah.
He's a trust fund kid.
Yeah.
But not only is he a trust fund kid, he's a trust fund kid whose dad is a race car driver.
Yeah.
Because that's Han Solo's story post Return of the Jedi.
Right.
He goes, I don't know what to do with myself, and he becomes he races the Millennium Falcon and then later other ships. He becomes a race car driver in his older age.
That's cool.
And then he runs a race team, right? Like, that's the story up until...
I don't think I knew that.
Oh, it's in the novels. It's in the books.
Okay.
And then Ben destroys the temple, and then Han and
Right.
Leia fight, split, and he
Right.
goes off and becomes a smuggler again,
Right.
and she leads a resistance, right?
Right.
In the midst of all of that, Ben Solo, has everything he's ever wanted, not to mention the fact that he's got two of the coolest parents in the galaxy.
Yeah, pretty sweet uncle.
His uncle is the greatest Jedi Master who's ever lived, if you listen to the legends.
Yeah.
Right? And he has the same power that Luke does. And as he grows up, he learns, not only do I have the same power, I'm actually more powerful.
Right. Yeah.
And if you ask me, that's the combination of the Skywalker genetics and the Solo luck.
Yeah,
Like, you put those two things together, it's
Yeah.
like, you never lose.
Yeah.
And Snoke comes along and says, come with me, I'll make you the most powerful person in the galaxy.
Right.
And not necessarily like turn to the dark side, because the whole point of Snoke's teachings is both.
Right.
It's like
yeah,
like you need to like ride the line. You need to use the dark side when it's useful to you. You need to use the light side when it's useful. It's very subtextual in The Force Awakens, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
I do like the idea that it's like he is succumbing to the light side. That is one of those things. It is the reverse of Anakin Skywalker. So I agree with that. But he chooses in The Last Jedi the dark side.
Yeah.
Rey puts it in front of him and says, like, we can do this now. Like, you're free of this monster. Let's save everybody. We can save everybody. We did it. Return of the Jedi. We did it. It happened just now. We finished the trilogy one movie early.
Yeah.
And then Kylo Ren goes, no, I want to be the bad guy. And she's like, don't, please, come on. I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. Because she doesn't want to be a hero, right?
Yeah.
And he goes, no, this is who I'm meant to be. I'm supposed to be Darth Vader. He chooses to be Darth Vader.
Because otherwise, killing his dad didn't mean anything.
Sure.
I don't know.
But he killed his father.
Yeah.
Right? And she says to him, why did you hate Han Solo? And he's like, I didn't hate Han Solo. I just had to kill him in order to become more powerful. That's worse than Anakin.
Yeah, that's fair.
Anakin did the opposite. Anakin was killing other people. He kills Mace Windu to save Padme.
Right.
Kylo kills his father, Han Solo, the most beloved character in all of Star Wars, to a lot of people. In order to what?
Yeah.
Be stronger in the dark side?
Yeah.
Be stronger with the Force?
Yeah.
To what end? You already have the First Order, and you guys can already conquer. You don't need to be any more powerful than you already are. You can stop blaster bolts with your mind. And yet he's like, I want more. That character is not redeemable as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
They have a lot of uphill work to do in this last movie if they're going to get me to swallow that pill.
Yeah, okay.
You just want to see them make out. That's all it's about to you.
I'm just saying.
You just want them to kiss. Daisy Ridley's on my side. She said that this week. She doesn't like Reylo.
That's fine.
But her point is less about, him being irredeemable, and more about that's not important.
Yeah,
it's not a romantic story.
It's not a romantic story.
There is a romantic story in the sequels. It's between Poe and Finn.
Yeah.
But no, it's between Finn and Rose, right?
Yeah.
But and now there's a new character coming into this new one.
It doesn't even have to be. It's just they're just so interesting. I guess villains that are interesting villains are good. I don't know, because if he wants to be like his dad, or like his grandpa, if he wants to be like Anakin, that's the thing for me, is that when he finds out what Anakin is,
he knows already. He knows the whole story.
Oh.
There's no mystery there for him. That's the thing, is that this is what we were talking about before. Was that in the pre-show? Yeah.
Maybe.
He knows the history. He doesn't understand the lesson.
Right. Yeah. That's
right.
Yeah.
He didn't learn he listened to Luke, but he didn't take it to heart.
Yeah.
And so he's infatuated with this idea that he has in his head that's very different from the reality.
Yeah.
Which is that Darth Vader single-handedly destroyed the Jedi Order and conquered the galaxy.
Right.
That's what he sees.
Right.
he doesn't see that Darth Vader was a monster that lost everything he cared about in the pursuit of saving everything.
Yeah.
Like, he sees it as triumphant,
Yeah.
not as a tragedy.
Right.
Right?
Which is, yeah.
So,
fair.
he's lost. He's truly lost.
Yeah.
I just don't see that character. There could be a pivotal moment where he comes back from it and saves the day at the very end of the movie. I do maintain that that's entirely possible that Rey flipping over the TIE fighter isn't her jumping over the TIE fighter to attack it or something. It's her jumping on top of the TIE fighter as they fly off to go.
That's the thing for me, is that they're doing some sort of like drill or something and being like, we could be more powerful together or something. Like, it's going to be something really cool.
I hope it's not a training montage. Well, I hope there are no training montages in the third movie.
But that it's something very intentional, that he knows that that's what she's going to do. Yeah. Because
he doesn't fire
on her. So it's a very intentional thing where it's like, we're going to go do this thing together and this is how we're going to. That's how I see it as well. And I think it would be really cool if that's the case where they have to.
In those Vanity Fair pictures, there is a picture of the two of them fighting in the rain on top of the Millennium Falcon.
That's cool.
So what's that? What's that all about? I don't know.
The thing is, I don't know, things that bring people together or whatever are like, you could still like fight and then have like a common enemy that you like.
But they don't have a common enemy.
They could find a common enemy.
Maybe.
In this next one.
Maybe.
Anyways, he is the enemy.
He is the enemy. He's the only enemy left.
Yeah.
Unless Palpatine is somehow still alive, but I don't think that's the case. So Attack of the Clones better than the Phantom Menace. If you had to watch one of those two movies right now, which one would you rather watch?
Oh, Attack of the Clones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Because I can get up and make a sandwich during the Anakin Padme stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'll just be making sandwiches the whole time I'm watching Phantom Menace. Just have a lot of sandwiches.
Yeah. Because I don't want to watch the Phantom Menace again. Yeah. I get, it's fine.
Yeah.
I might have it with the different eyes if I know the coolness of Darth Maul, but I don't, so.
No, because nothing in the Phantom Menace informs anything other than what I said today, which is him going like, at last we'll reveal ourselves, right? Yeah. That's all you need to know about that character.
Yeah.
And then Obi-Wan cuts him in half.
Attack of the Clones.
Okay, cool. So right now the ranking is number 1, Attack of the Clones, number 2, The Phantom Menace. Mm-hmm. So far we're in reverse order.
Yeah.
I think that trend will continue next week. Because Revenge of the Sith it's definitely better than these two movies. But it's very long. And it's boring in the sense that it's only fighting. That's all that happens in this next movie. So, cool. Well, that's it for this week's episode of the Thunderquack Podcast. Thank you for listening. You can head to thunderquack.com to check out all the other podcasts in the Thunderquack Podcast Network. And of course, you can follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/Thunderquack, on Twitter at ThunderquackNet, and on Instagram at Thunderquack Podcast.
You can also follow us individually. I'm at Akonkin, AKONKIN. You can add an 86 to that for Instagram.
I am at Arkwolf, ARKWULF, on Twitter and Instagram. Go check out our YouTube later this week, or possibly earlier this week, for the Aladdin reviewed episode that's up on there. Of course, if you are a Patreon supporter at $5 or above, it'll be in your feed as well. If you like what you hear, you can support us in 2 ways. First, by going to store.thunderquack.com to pick up some merch. You get a t-shirt, you get a mug, you get a scarf, you get I should get a comforter for this.
Ooh, because then,
Ooh.
Because then we can have...
Because it's like a bed. It's a...
Like a day bed?
Kind of a day bed. Yeah, it's kind of a day bed. Yeah. And it's just got a boring, generic comforter on it right now.
Like a cool Thunderquack.
But we should totally get a Thunderquack comforter for it. Awesome. That's a great idea. I'm so glad I came up with that idea. See, go to store.thunderquack.com. Check out all the awesome stuff there, the great designs. And great designs. That's very self-serving. I apologize for that. I designed all that stuff. Check out all of the stuff that's inspired by our great podcast.
Yeah, there you go.
designs I'm proud of, but I
Yeah, there you
shouldn't
go.
call my own designs great.
Please don't put them up unless you think they're great, though. Because
Yes,
a lot
of
of people
course.
don't want
No,
that.
but it's just I'm
Yeah.
just not allowed to say it out loud.
Okay.
Yeah, go check all that stuff out, and you might be inspired to redecorate your house with some awesome Thunderquack stuff. The other way to support us is by heading to patreon.com/Thunderquack, as so many of you already do. Thank you so much to all of our new Patreon supporters.
Woo.
I hoped that our changes would inspire some people to subscribe that hadn't subscribed before, as well as some people to increase their pledge amounts, and you guys did. Not only that, but soon we will have a second microphone because of the support of a very specific listener. But I'll wait until we have the second microphone to give him a shout out.
Nice.
But he knows who he is, and he's awesome, and currently my favorite person on the planet.
That's exciting.
Other than my daughter and my unborn daughter. And I think he understands. But he's ranking higher than my wife right now. Cool. That's it for this week's episode. Thank you for listening, and we will catch you next week.
May the force be with you.
Did you think about that ahead of time?
I sure did. I've been sitting here for a while being like, okay, what can I do?